Hello and welcome to my third video, ensuring user adoption after project go live. Hopefully here you'll find some tips that will help you to make your projects a success. So the first thing is set some adoption goals. Work with your steering team to do this. So whoever you used or defined during the project phase, that same team should also be used after go live to set your adoption goals. Think about when you're setting these goals, what would successful adoption look like in your business? It might not necessarily be a complete adoption of all the new processes and or systems. It will depend, of course, on the project that you are undertaking. But when you're setting these, think about what successful adoption or even project completion, because that's not necessarily a go live, is it, might look like for you and your business. And define a time frame as well over which to achieve these goals. So if it's a small scale project, 3 months might be absolutely fine. If it's a bigger project, you might need to push that back to a year, but define that time frame. And then also decide how you're going to monitor the results or those adoption goals. Have you got any clear metrics, or are they more subjective things that you can still list, but you might not necessarily measure them through statistics? The second point is keep users updated on snagging lists. After go live, it's very, very easy for a project to kind of lose steam or start to peter out a little bit. People can also lose interest as well. Keep your users engaged by updating them on any snagging lists, issues that haven't been fixed and which are still in progress. Make sure you listen to your staff as well. Again, after go live, it's almost more important than before, in fact, because yes, we all get people who just moan, and some people just like to moan for the sake of moaning, but there are also others who, yes, they might be moaning, but they'll actually have something genuine to contribute. They don't necessarily always do it in a positive way. We know that just from working with people. But make sure you listen to what people are saying, either those in your steering team or also users outside of that team as well. Make sure your staff are trained too in the new processes or systems. I know it sounds an obvious one, but training is something that often gets overlooked or is also not always undertaken at the right time. Ideally, depending on the scale of the change, users should be trained before user acceptance testing and then also shortly before or after go live as well. People who aren't trained and don't really know what's expected of them are going to struggle, they're going to get frustrated, and then as a natural result they will simply go back to what they know and love, which is their old system or process, assuming of course that's possible. Set a time frame as well to review what processes they're using or still using. Again, that's going to depend on the scale of the project. You might put in a completely new system and everyone just has to use it from the point of go live, and that's all there is to it. But that isn't always the case, depending on what you're changing and what you're doing. So set a time frame over which you think is reasonable for everyone to have adopted these new processes or systems. And lastly, don't be afraid to make an executive decision to force change. It's human nature that people will gravitate towards something they feel more comfortable with or they're used to. Even if it's not necessarily better, they'll just feel comfortable with it because it's familiar. So sometimes you might encounter people who are still using the old process 6 months on, even though the new process works perfectly fine. They're just more comfortable. People get put off by that fear of what if I do this new thing and it doesn't quite work properly? What if I do it and such goes wrong? Sometimes you just have to make a decision and say, this is what we're going to do from now. Of course, in the absence of any evidence to the contrary. Okay, that's the steps for this video. I hope that's useful, and good luck in improving your user adoption. Bye for now.